Okay. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am living the dream. I have found, Nicolette, that oftentimes the best icebreaker is just to start singing when you enter a meeting. It usually works pretty well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It did. It did. It's doing. I'm more at ease now because
Good.
I was
Perfect.
because I was just reading your profile. I'm like, oh gosh, he is there. He started a podcast. He's got what thousands of episodes, and here I am, small little tiny. You
That's
know.
okay. We all start from the same place, and I think I remember what it was like to be 15 episodes in, so it's all good.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Of
Well,
course.
okay, shall we start?
Sure, let's start.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Kevin.
Hi,
Um,
Nicolette.
Hi. I'm Nicolette, the creator of that podcast, You're Worthless. Read that again. Juxtaposition of your very soul. So
Hmm.
thank you so much for reaching out and actually for giving me your time for our interview today. So just want to check, which part of the world are you from?
Hmm.
Are you in right now?
I live in the United States on the East Coast in New Hampshire.
You're the second guest that said East Coast, New York side, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm not sure if you've been to Malaysia.
Mm-mm. No, no, not yet.
Not yet, yes. Okay. All right, so I think I'm just gonna give a little bit of introduction about you from Podmatch itself. So we have Kevin here, Kevin Palmieri. Is that right?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. He's a CFO of Next Level University, global top 100 podcast with 1,500, almost 1,500 plus episodes, 850K listens, over 150 countries. When I was just checking my Spotify, I'm covering only I think about 10 countries, but then I was ecstatic about it. But 150, okay, we're gonna dive deep into that. Multi six-figure show, well, podcast coach and a consultant, and also I've been on 650 podcasts. Wow. Okay, before we get to the now, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Like, who was Kevin and who is Kevin?
Today, Kevin is all of those things, and
Okay.
that's definitely not where Kevin started for sure. I was raised in a household without a dad. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother, and I didn't meet my dad with the understanding that he was my father until I was 27. So a lot of my limiting beliefs, a lot of my lack of enoughness, feeling good enough, a lot of that came from childhood, just feeling abandoned from as far back as I could remember. And my family was definitely lower middle class. We didn't have a lot of money. Money was a struggle for us. So I didn't know, I really never knew what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't expect to be here. This wasn't something I planned. Podcasting didn't exist when I was a kid, so that wasn't it. That wasn't the goal. So I ended up just after high school, I didn't go to college. I didn't it didn't make sense to me. I didn't want to go put myself into debt to try to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I just started working a bunch of odd jobs.
Mm,
And I was a gas station attendant, I was a personal trainer,
I worked
truck
at the
driver.
cinema before, so.
Okay, see? Truck driver, forklift operator. I was
Well,
in construction. I did a bunch of different things. But I eventually got a job that paid really, really well in an
mm,
industry called weatherization. All
what?
that means, yeah, most people have no idea. Yeah,
Weatherization. Okay. Break down
weatherization,
weather? Something to do about the weather? No?
kind of.
Kind
So
of. Okay.
you go into buildings, and it's your job to make the building more energy efficient.
Ah, right. Okay. So you check, is it before the construction or
After,
after? Okay. So
after,
it's
yep,
got to do with the electricity, all those.
yep.
Okay.
Windows. It has to do with
Ah,
windows, doors, where the air leakage is, where the energy leakage is, that type of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
right. Okay. And they pay
So
good
I
money
got
for that.
the job I had paid very good money because I was working on schools. So I was getting paid by the state most of the time.
Wow.
So it was a little bit different than going into residential homes and doing it. So when I got that job, I was like, this is it. I just went from making $15 an hour to making $60 an hour.
Cool.
In the US, that's a wonderful wage. So, okay, cool. I'm in. I'm going to do this forever.
Yeah.
And if you were to look at me when I was 25, you would see someone who, from the outside looking in, I had everything. I had just won a bodybuilding show, so I was in the best shape of my life.
Right.
My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had this job.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
New car.
I had my question. What happened
Yeah.
in your 20s? Okay.
And I'm happy to dive deeper in it.
Oh.
So what ended up happening was I had all the external results. I looked really successful. Internally, I was very unhappy, very unfulfilled, very misaligned, not on purpose, living by accident. And a few years later, I ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide because I was so miserable with the existence I had created for myself. Left my job, went full-time into podcasting in 2018. So that's the story form of everything.
The framework, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, now the next question. What happened in that mid-20s when you said you hit rock bottom? What did rock bottom look to you like?
Yeah, so one day my girlfriend, we lived together when I was 25. She came to me and said, hey, I want to move from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I want to chase my dreams.
LA,
I want to,
right? LA's that.
LA.
Okay.
That's where she wanted to go.
Okay.
Yeah, she wanted to go to California.
Okay.
And I was so afraid of being left behind that I tried to keep her small. I tried to give her every reason in the world why she wouldn't succeed, why she couldn't make it, why she shouldn't go chase her dreams.
May I ask, what did she want to do?
I don't know. She didn't really have a specific career path. She just has always wanted to move across the country. So, unfortunately, I tried to hold her back because I was so afraid I was going to be left behind. And she ended up leaving me, as she should have. And when she left, that really was the initial rock bottom for me, because when she left, all my bills doubled because she was paying half the rent, and right? So that happened. My work got really slow because we were in between contracts, and I ended up becoming pretty broke. And I was just super lonely, and I was trying to figure out who I was and how did I let this happen and what am I going to do with my life? I don't understand. I don't know what to do. Am I ever going to be lovable? Am I broken? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So that was the initial rock bottom.
Okay.
Then I convinced myself, Nicolette, that if maybe I'll just go make a bunch of money, and if I make more money, most of my other problems will go away.
Yeah. Or just throw yourself into working, or just practically anything else to numb that thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And the next year, I spent 10 months on the road for my job because a lot of our contracts were in other states. And I spent 10 months living in hotels, just working my face off to try to make as much money as humanly possible. That was my goal.
Wow.
So we got to the end of that year, and I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. And that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do because I thought that was going to...
Yeah.
I got it. I
You got
succeeded.
it, right? Yeah. Okay.
I got it.
Yeah.
But nothing
There's a big
internally changed. Yeah, nothing internally changed. I didn't feel any different about myself. My bank account was different, and that's great, and that's a circumstance.
Yeah.
But the internal self-talk, the internal self-worth, the internal view of myself didn't change. So that's when I ended up starting a podcast. I remember thinking to myself that for most of my life, I've lived unconsciously. That's where it started.
Yes, me too.
The opposite, Nicolette, the opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So that is the podcast that I started. I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Okay.
That was how this all started for me. I fell in love with podcasting as I fell out of love with my job. I was so miserable at work. I hated traveling. I knew that wasn't going to be the answer to my life's problems, so I wanted to podcast. But in the beginning, you're not making any money, and it's just a cute little hobby, and nobody takes you seriously.
Exactly. It's like,
right?
It's just another project on the side.
Yeah.
This girl or this guy's doing. Let's see how far they're gonna go.
Yep. Which I understand. I understand very, very, very deeply. But I wanted to do this podcast thing because I felt like for the first time in my life, I was actually doing something that mattered, that truly mattered to people, not just me. It was impact. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job sites early. I'm showing up late. And eventually,
I hope my boss doesn't see this.
Right?
They follow me in social media and they know that I just started this, but yeah, okay.
We'll have to cut that part from the interview so you don't get in trouble. But I just fell in love with this. I fell in love with podcasting, and it got to the point where I was just I felt so stuck, and I felt so trapped, and I felt so homesick being away for so long. My mental health was just going down the toilet, and I woke up one morning and I had these suicidal ideations of I don't know if I want to be here anymore. If I leave,
after you started the podcast or
yes.
before?
After
the podcast. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I felt like I was never going to be able to do the podcast
full time and make money from there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't seem possible to me. So I thought to myself, if I end it all, I'll take my problems with me. That was my thought process. And I reached out to one of my good friends who's now my business partner, and he gave me a lot of really good advice to kind of work myself through that moment. And I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, and then beginning the journey of being a very broke entrepreneur / podcaster trying to figure this all out.
Okay, I still have my 9 to 5. In fact, I came because it's 10 p.m. on my side, so
my goodness.
Yeah, but it's fine because most of the guests are from the US, so they're 10 a.m. right around 9, 10, so it's fine. So now I'm in my outfit, so it's like after work, okay, rest, and then okay, I've got an interview, so yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah, I respect every guest who come on my show. Okay, so yeah, you were saying your business partner, he helped you out, and then and then the rest was history.
You could say that. Yeah, it wasn't. It took a long time and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stress and panic and anxiety attacks and losing friendships and losing partners and being very consistent and committed and saying no to the wrong things and yes to the right things over the next 6 years. So it wasn't
6 years.
Yeah. It wasn't. I left my job and then we went viral and now it was brutal.
It was grit and hard work.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So there are a few questions here. Like I'm gonna repurpose some of your questions that you put. I wanted to ask you as my we call it in Asia sifu. Sifu means master in podcasting. So why is consistency very important? Like, what is your advice, like to a rookie like myself or to other people that is still contemplating, they want to do it, but something's just holding them back?
It's everything. Consistency is everything in everything. So the story I always use for this, my wife and I went away on vacation one time, and we wanted to go to this restaurant. And we walk up to the door, and there's a sign on the door that says, "We're closed today. The chef wasn't feeling well." And my wife and I were still hungry, so we went down the street to a different restaurant. I most likely will never go back to that first restaurant because they were closed that day. They lost a potential client forever. That other restaurant gained a new potential client forever. The second restaurant was more consistently open than the first one. If you're not open, if you're not consistent, if you're not showing up, you lose so many opportunities that you don't even realize you're losing because you're not there to see them. That's part one. Part two is the more you do something, the better you get at it, and the more likely you are to do it again. So another great analogy for this is right now, if you said, Kevin, can you do the splits? Can you like do the splits and sit down with your legs all the way apart? No, I cannot do that. That would be horrible and I would definitely hurt myself. But if you said, could you do the splits by this time next year? Sure. If I practiced every day, but if I, instead of practicing every day, I said, well, I'll just practice once a month. That's only 12 times between now and next year. That's not going to do it. Well, I'll practice twice a week. I don't know if that's going to do it either. The more consistent you are, the more likely you are to accomplish whatever it is you're going out for. So yeah, as a podcaster, as a speaker, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and somebody in sales, it's usually the person who takes the most shots that actually ends up winning. Are you going to miss more shots than everybody else? Yes, definitely. But you're also going to hit more shots than anybody else. So I cannot speak to the importance of consistency enough. It is the most important thing if you're really trying to accomplish something great. And the other thing too is if you want to get good at something, the best way to do it is just to do a lot of reps. If in any way, shape, or form I am a halfway decent speaker by this time in my life, it's just because I've done this 2,000 times. But you got to believe I wouldn't be this good, quote unquote, if I had only done 20 times. No way. No way. It's just because I've done so many reps so consistently over the last 6 years. So that's another thing too. From day to day, progress is invisible. I did 5 interviews yesterday. I'm going to do 5 episodes today. I'm no better today, measurably, than I was yesterday. But if you look at this episode and you look at an episode from 5 years ago, my goodness, was I terrible 5 years ago. It's just, it's the consistency.
Should have hide under the table.
Yep.
Okay. So how does one start to become consistent?
Yeah, there are a couple ways. One, you have to figure out how do you make consistency a little bit easier. So what is the...
Yeah. Sometimes it's the enemy of everything.
Yeah.
It's about podcasting. It's about, okay, I tell myself, maybe I need to run. I commit. But then tomorrow comes and do I want to run? Maybe I'm tired. I slept late last night because I was interviewing somebody. That's the excuse I give myself, for example. So how do, that's just my example, but the other people, they have different circumstances.
Yeah. I look at it there's 2 Ds. When it comes to consistency, there's 2 Ds. There's discipline and design. So let's do this. If you designed your environment where your shoes and your running clothes and your water bottle and your Apple Watch and your cell phone were all right by the door in the morning, the night before you set them all up, you're designing your morning. I mean, here's the simplest way. You would take your phone and you would set your alarm on your phone and you would put it in the other room with all of your running stuff. And the only way you shut your alarm off is if you get up and you walk into the other room and you pick it up off of your running shoes to turn the alarm off. You're halfway there. You're already in the room with your clothes. That's designing. You're designing your environment to help you become a little bit more consistent. Because if we're not living by design, oftentimes we're living by discipline. So that's when you wake up and it's 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your bed is so comfy and it's warm and you don't want to get out. Then you have to rely almost purely on discipline. So what I would say is if you can design, so even in podcasting as an example, designing a day where every single week you record on the same day. So for us, we record 7 episodes on Monday. You can't get a hold of me on Monday. I don't come on your show.
Hang on. Let me get that right. 7 episodes in one day.
Yes.
You have a team, right, Kevin? You have
yes.
Okay, you have a team.
Yeah, we're very blessed. We have an amazing 16-person team right now. So it's that allows us to be able to stay in kind of that zone and do the things that nobody else can do, right? We're the faces of the brand, so we have to do the podcast, obviously. But even to the original point, I remember when it was hard for me to do one in a day. That happened. In the beginning, doing one, if I had a podcast episode in a coaching call in the same day, I used to have to take a nap after. I'm not even kidding. I am serious. Yeah, but now, I just recorded an episode. I have this. I have another podcast later. I have a coaching call and then 2 more episodes. So I'll do 7 or 8 calls today. Honestly, though, that's an easy day now compared to some. That's not bad. But that's just because of the consistency. I've just done it so many times. So that's another important check mark for the consistency. But if you're designing your days where my water bottle is out, my running shoes are out, the leash for the dog is out, whatever it is, my laptop is open on the right tab, so when I sit down, I have the right thing to do, that's one way to be more consistent, is to design your environment, design your life, design your tasks, design your ecosystem to help you be more consistent.
Basically, help yourself to help yourself.
Yeah, make it easier. Make it easier to do the thing that you know you should.
Okay. So, you said here, did you struggle?
No,
Austin,
never, not at all.
Can someone succeed without struggling? I know it's far-fetched, but I mean,
it's not as I don't think it's as far-fetched as you think in terms of a lot of the advice people give. I know a lot of people that say, well, success should be easy and you shouldn't have to work hard. I think those are all mistruths. I mean, in what world can we get all of the things we desire without doing any of the things we don't? I don't know if that I don't know if it exists. Yeah. Really? So no, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot accomplish what you want without having some level of struggle. It tends to be when you're setting goals, you set goals for the result. I mean, people really want to accomplish the goals. The reason a lot of us don't accomplish the goals we set out to accomplish is because we don't enjoy doing what it takes to accomplish the goals. That's all. The shining example of, oh, you have 1,400 episodes or 1,500 episodes, that sounds really good. That's a really good goal. But I didn't want to record all of them. I didn't want to record a lot of them. Some days I just don't want to do it. So that's a struggle sometimes. Is that an aligned struggle? Yes. Is that a virtuous struggle to have? Yes. Is that a chosen struggle? Yes. But I don't think a life of having all success with no struggle or no problems ever exists. And here's the other thing too. I don't think that's what we desire. I believe humans require resistance, because when you do something hard, you're proud of it and it brings fulfillment. Yeah, we need that. We need that as humans.
But there are okay, maybe going a little bit philosophical right now. We have people saying, monks, that life should take life as it is. And it's like, it shouldn't be a struggle. You see, that's the juxtaposition of the whole notion. You struggle for something, but at the same time, you don't have to struggle, because everything you create your reality in here, right? And that becomes the reality. So I struggle with that myself. Especially when I had my own, how do I say, wake up call in 2019 with my divorce. So after that, it's like downhill, and then had to lose myself to find myself again. And I've been hearing a lot of these things. Right now, 2023 is the year that I said, okay, maybe it's time for me to start a podcast and start talking to people before I go insane. So yes. What does that mean to you, or what do you think? What do you make of that?
It's a great question, because I don't know that it's really hard to exist on one of the sides of polarity, right? So there are some people out there. Here's the thing. There are some people out there that need to hear that. They're worried about everything, and they're creating so much struggle in their life just by existing and thinking, well, I don't have enough money to pay the bills. Even if they do, well, the people at work don't like me. My kids don't like me. I'm never going to get in shape. Everything is so hard. Everything is so challenging. I'm never going to make it. That might be good for someone who's on that polarity to say, well, everything that's supposed to happen is going to happen. I don't necessarily believe that, though, for me. I'm not going to change the world by just doing what I feel like doing. That's not going to happen. No way. Not to the level I want to. But that's probably not advice for me. The advice I need to hear is probably from people who have built the businesses that we're trying to build, who actually understand what it takes to get there. There's nothing wrong with that. The other side of the polarity is the transcendence of everything is the way, right? Divine timing. Resistance doesn't exist. It's man-made construct, all of that, or human-made construct. Some people probably need that perspective as well. I think the truth lives somewhere in the middle. It's very interesting to me how so many of the people that we aspire to be them because they have the answers that we desire so much. I think a lot of us desire a life that doesn't have any struggle. I don't. That's not what I aspire to. I'm a gym rat. I love going to the gym. If I'm not struggling, I'm not growing. And that is a law of the universe when it comes to bodybuilding or fitness in general. There is resistance. That's how you get better. So yeah, that's what I would say. I would say that it's very hard to exist on one end of polarity. And usually the truth lies somewhere in between, but the truth is personal to you. If waking up in the morning and saying, there is no such thing as struggle and today's going to go the way I want it to go, that works for you, do that. If you're more on my end and you believe it is your job to create every single success you have in your life and that serves you, do that. That's what I would say. I would say the recipe is different for everyone. And unfortunately, at times, we tend to buy the recipe book that we want, not the one that we need.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. That's a very good call out. It's like when we see people with their own recipe book, when we look at them and think that, oh, they're cooking good food with that recipe book. I also want that, but then that food is actually not meant for me. I'm
Right.
meant to eat or cook something else. Okay. So it's like sifting. No, I also believe that it's true being selective, but at the right, because you're at a different point in your life. You might go to this. You might lean towards the other side, and it's not like, okay, by 40 you're supposed to be here. By 50 you're supposed to be on this side. You can. It's interchangeable, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It depends on the goals, too. It depends on the goals, right? Like, there's a lot of people... I've worked with a lot of podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcasters that it's very, very hard for me to help are the ones that say, everything is going the exact way it should. I don't want to work any harder. And I'm just going to get the results I get based on the results I should get. It's very hard for me to help because it's almost like a hands-off approach. But here's the bet I would make. They will never be as quote-unquote holistically successful as our podcast is. I don't know how they could. Because I'm looking at the numbers every day and I'm analyzing things and I'm looking at the analytics and I'm trying to take a very logical approach of what's working and what's not. I don't know. Imagine, would you ever get on a plane that was built with just the thought of, we'll see what happens. You know, if If it works, it works. If not, whatever. Not a chance. Not a chance. So I do think there's a space for that. There is a space for allowance. But I also think there's a space for ambition. And I think it's a juggling act of those two, depending on the goals.
Okay. Listeners, watch out. So, what's the biggest thing you've learned from recording over 1,000 episodes? Wow, I'm like 5% in. No, let's see.
We all start at the same place, my friend.
Exactly.
We all start at the same place. I would probably say you have no idea how much you can change in 5 years.
Really?
You have no idea. It's so hard to visualize.
2028, okay.
Yeah. There's no reason that you can't be 1,000 episodes in 5 years. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I won't say there's no reason. It's definitely possible for you to be 1,000 episodes in 5 years from today. You just got to do 200 episodes a year. It's possible if you want to do it.
Yeah.
Time is one of the hardest things to account for. And if you read 10 pages a day times 365, 3,650 pages. Now you do that for 5 years. What's that? 20,000 pages? I don't know how many books that's 100, 200-page books. That is wild. And that's just 5 years. So yeah, the lesson I have learned is time is so difficult to understand how much it can change everything around you.
And time is basically our best friend.
Our best friend or our worst enemy, depending on the life that we're living.
Yes. What is something that you wish you knew earlier before you started all of this?
I wish I knew that the level of results that I'm going to create in my life are directly connected to the level of self-improvement that I consume. I really, really wish I knew that.
Kevin, can we break it down? The level of results.
Mm-hmm.
What's
are
it?
directly so the level of results in my life will be directly connected to the level of self-improvement content I consume. Holistically.
Of course, that's proportional, right?
I never knew that. Yeah, in the beginning for me, no.
Well, what do you think?
I thought people who were wealthy got lucky, and I thought, I thought
I was just born in this
kind of
mediocre family background, and okay,
yeah. This is a good piece of awareness for you.
Okay,
your awareness right now as a human being is roughly 1 million times more than mine was at the beginning of this podcast journey. So you're way ahead of the curve.
No!
Yes. I had no idea. I didn't know what self-worth was. I didn't track habits. I didn't read in the beginning. No, that's why I say, number one, sometimes I don't feel like I should even be where I am. I wake up and pinch myself.
That's imposter syndrome talking.
I deal with that. I deal with that.
I have that specific episode for imposter syndrome.
I do. I deal with imposter syndrome a lot. But part of it is so much has changed for me in 5 years. So much. Now I am being interviewed on my opinion on every day, and like, what have you learned?
Yeah, look at that.
It's flipped in a very drastic way.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's just time. Just time.
If you put it that way, then it's actually pretty remarkable. So you're saying that you've been doing podcasting for 5 years?
2017. So almost 7 years. Yeah.
7 years. Okay. All right. So how can people be more confident? I mean, in anything. Like, even public speaking, or, okay, some people say like, okay, wow, some of my friends, they never thought that I would actually start something like this, but they did see some of my episodes, and it's like, where are you getting all these people? I'm like, oh, thank you, Podmatch. But yeah, I mean, how do you? Some people are in. It's confidence. Sometimes it's built, and sometimes it's some people just have it innately. I would say I'm the uh former. I forced myself when I was a kid. So yeah, how it's never too late, right?
Never. No, never. I'm definitely very similar to you. I have forced myself. I am not naturally confident by any stretch of the imagination. I would say you have to break down the mountain. So what I've seen just by coaching so many people at this point, somebody who identifies as I am the type of person who is not confident, this is what they'll do. They'll say, but this is the goal I'm going to set. I've been convinced I should really set these large, massive, changing goals. I'm going to set one. Then they don't believe enough in actually following through, and that hurts their confidence even worse. But if you said, right now, I feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, I have a level 2 confidence. Cool, awesome. Nope, nothing wrong with that. No judgment. Good for you for having that level of self-awareness. This is what you should do. Let's set up a 2.5 level goal. So instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym every single day this year, just say, I'm going to go to the gym once a week starting next week. Because that's an appropriate size goal for the level of self-belief that you have. In the U.S., Nicolette, every year we have New Year's resolutions. I don't. Do you do?
We have it in Malaysia too, but it's
do
not.
You, do you?
It's not a very big thing, but I mean, it's more people saying it to themselves. Okay, this is my resolution, or they have it in a group setting. Okay, what's your New Year's resolution? Oh, I'm gonna lose what 5 kgs. I mean, the US, you guys use pounds, right? We use kgs here, so it's like, yeah, maybe, what else? Quit smoking, yada yada yada. So
yes. I'm assuming in Malaysia it's probably very similar to the US, where not a lot of people, unfortunately, end up accomplishing their New Year's resolutions, and here's why. You're setting a goal based on a date, not based on what you actually think you're capable of accomplishing. You're not setting the goal because you think, well, you know what? I could. Yeah, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year, and it's starting right now. You're setting the goal because it's New Year's resolution. You're shooting for the stars, and that's great. I love it. But most of us aren't going to be able to follow through on that. I would much rather someone say, I'm going to lose 5 pounds over the next 3 months. Because what happens is when you accomplish that, it actually builds confidence. And then you can say, I wonder if I could lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, let me try that. I believe the way to build confidence is to break down the things that we're doing into more bite-sized pieces so we can actually get more of them done. Don't worry about getting to the peak, getting to the summit of the mountain. Worry about getting the first 5 steps. Because the view looks different 5 steps up than it does on the very bottom. And you can rinse and repeat that over a long enough period of time. I had a client, Nicolette, who came to me one time and said, hey, I want to be a speaker like you. I said, cool, awesome. I said, let me just ask you this question. Do you do any speaking yet? And she said, no, not yet. And I said, all right, cool. That's the first step. I know it sounds overly simplistic, but
at
hear
least
me out.
he's aware that, okay, he has that speaking yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, all right, we got to get you speaking. Cool. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how outside of your comfort zone would it be for you to do a Facebook Live right now in front of all of your friends? And she said, I could never. That would put me into the anxiety zone. I would lose my mind. I said, okay, cool. That's not the answer. Okay, how about this? On a scale of 1 to 10, how outside of your comfort zone would it be for you to record a video on your cell phone and show nobody? And she said, no, that wouldn't do anything. That would be easy. Okay, interesting. Right? Polarity.
Yeah.
Too hard, too easy. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard would it be? How outside of your comfort zone would it be to record a video and just show me? Somebody you trust and somebody you feel very safe around. And she said, that's probably like a 5 out of 10. I said, perfect, let's start there. And then she sent me a video the next day. Off to the races. Then it would be, you show this video to me and one other person. Then you show this video to me and 5 other people. Then you post on your Facebook. Then you post on your Instagram. And eventually, for your 10th, 15th, 25th speech, you talk to 20 people in a real crowd on stage with a microphone. But it doesn't have to be the first one or the 5th one or the 10th one. That could be something you do 3 years from now. That's okay too. So that's an example of building confidence just little by little by little by little.
Gradual improvements.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Yep.
Okay. Right. So I think we did talk about this just now, but let's just go back to it. How does someone find their purpose? Like, you found your purpose in podcasting. I think I am beginning to understand that too for me. So, but somebody out there is still lost.
Yeah. So I have many different views on this.
Oh, please.
One thing I would say is, and one of our mentors, Evan Carmichael, says this. That's where I really,
Carmichael, yeah.
Yeah, he's a friend of ours at this point, a very good human being. He said, your purpose comes from your deepest pain. And it makes sense when you think about it, because...
But I'm going to quote that. Your purpose comes from your deepest pain.
That is what he has surmised over his years of research and experience in interviews. And I agree. I think that's a big piece of it. There's some questions you can ask yourself. What would I find you, Nicolette? I'm sure if I was a fly on your wall Friday night, you'd be having deep conversations with your cat. I'm sure you having deep conversations is just part of who you are as a human being. Looks like I have one too. That's Ace. Ace looks like yours. Yeah.
Yes, this was Mario.
Mario, I love it.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to bet that you love having deep conversations. I can tell based on the podcast and the name of the podcast. Okay, cool. That's something you love doing. What is something that just upsets you to the point where you cannot finish your day? Okay, ask yourself that question whether you're watching or listening. Okay. My business partner's girlfriend went to the Great Barrier Reef. She realized that the Great Barrier Reef is more like the Great Barrier Cemetery, unfortunately. That changed her perspective on the environment, and she became way more sustainable. Recycling, all that stuff. She drives a hybrid car, an electric car now. It shaped the way that she lived her life, and that became one of her passions and her purposes, is to leave the planet better than she found it. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's a couple things. This is what I would say. There's a big difference between a purpose and a vehicle. Podcasting is not a purpose. My podcast is not my purpose. It's the vehicle with which I deliver my purpose, which is holistic self-improvement. I wonder if it would be more beneficial for people out there to think of, what is my vehicle to deliver my purpose? I think a lot of us do know what our purposes are. I really do. But we lose sight of how realistic it is. Well, I mean, yeah, I want to be positive and I want to coach people and I want to be a role model, but how am I going to do that? Oh, podcast. I love this. I love podcasting. Ooh, could this be it? Wow, this could be it. Okay. Because you got to think of it. There's a lot of people now more than ever that play video games for a living. But that opportunity didn't really exist 25 years ago. The vehicle wasn't the same as it is today. It didn't work that way. It didn't exist. So as vehicles appear, I believe the opportunity to locate and follow your purpose actually gets a little bit easier. I think it's the vehicle that a lot of us get stuck with. I really do. If you want to make...
I think you're right. They deep down, they already know what they want to do. It's the getting there.
Yeah. If you want to, so maybe you want to change the environment, or you want to clean up the beaches, and then the next thing is, well, how? Do I find a bunch of people, or do I start a charity or a nonprofit, or do I build some sort of machine? I just think it's really, really, it's almost like starting a business in a way, where you figure out what are you good at and what do you want to do, and how do you do it. I think it's the same with a purpose. You figure out, what do you want to do? What impact do you want to have in the world? What feelings do you want to facilitate? Then you say, well, how could I do that? If you're getting stuck on the how, I would say you're probably more stuck on the vehicle than the actual purpose. That's what I would say.
Okay. The vehicle.
The vehicle.
So, purpose. And now we come to the part of being vulnerable. While you are finding your purpose, do you need to be vulnerable? And why is it important? Because
vulnerability is living in the truth. So you were very vulnerable in the beginning when you said, so this wasn't in the interview, but when Nicolette logged on and I logged on, I was singing. I was like, no. That's just what I do. That's what I do before interviews. It gets me going. It gets me centered. It makes me feel very open and expressed. And Nicolette was vulnerable and said, I feel really at ease now, because when I was looking at your stuff, I was like, wow, this guy has done a lot of things, and I appreciate that. But that vulnerability is important, because if I know that, I'm going to treat you more warmly. If that's your truth, I want to make sure you feel even better. I want you to feel as safe as humanly possible. Being vulnerable around the right people is always going to be beneficial, because it's very hard to find your people. It's very hard to live your life. It's very hard to chase your passions if you're not being yourself. And being yourself is vulnerable. It's saying, I love cats. I'm the ultimate cat dad. Nicola, really? I love cats. Really? Yes, I love them. That's my next tattoo is going to be on my hand of my cats. Oh, that's my next.
The hand here?
The hand. Yeah.
The hand, okay.
I have space. I have space left, so that's what's going to go there. But that's, even me saying that is vulnerable, because some people might reach out and say, you're the ultimate cat dad? Cats are stupid. Cats are dumb. Whatever. That's a vulnerable thing to say, but that's my truth. I know, trust me. I will go to battle over my kitties. But at the end of the day, being vulnerable is just living in the truth. And I really believe the level of your relationships, particularly intimate, family, friends, whatever, business, the level of your relationships is connected to the level of vulnerability in them. Because if somebody doesn't know who you are, they don't have a relationship with you. They have a relationship with who you let them see. And that's not a real relationship.
Superficial.
Superficial. It's catered. It's a catered. This is who I want you to see.
When I'm with my boss, okay, this is the personality I'm going to show.
Yes. I think that's vulnerability in a nutshell. When you're vulnerable, you can actually connect on the truth. And those are the most powerful places to connect anyway. Now, disclaimer, there are some people you shouldn't be fully vulnerable with. If you don't know the person that well, if you don't trust the person that much, if you don't have that type of relationship, maybe you being vulnerable at that level is dangerous. Definitely. There are definitely people out there that you shouldn't do that around. But there's also probably people in your life that you would really benefit from being more vulnerable around. You have to have the self-awareness and the other's awareness to figure out who's who.
Now, you just mentioned self-awareness. Why is it important? Being aware.
Yeah. Because when you are self-aware, it allows you to become aware of everything else. So I had this time where I was working out with my business partner and one of our good friends. And when I'm working out, I feel really good. It's one of the places I've spent a lot of time. I'm really proficient. I'm strong. I was in really good shape. Awesome. 10 out of 10 confidence. I was supremely confident. Then we finished our workout. We sat down in the gym and we started talking about business. And I remember I had this shift. And internally, I started to villainize my business partner and my friend.
Why?
Because here's why. They knew a lot about business. They knew way more about business than I did, and I was insecure. And go ahead. Insecurity. Okay. And rather than admitting to myself, well, I did in real time, I did this, but if I wasn't self-aware and I didn't say, okay, let me take a second here. Are they making me feel a certain way? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. Or am I feeling a way based on something that they know and who they are as humans? They're not making me feel any type of way. I'm feeling a way in response to stuff that they're talking about. This isn't a them issue. This is something that I'm dealing with internally on myself. Self-awareness allowed me to flip the switch and say, this isn't their fault. They're not doing this to me.
They're not out to get you.
They're not out to get me. No, they're not thinking, how do we make Kevin secure? That's not what they're thinking. They're not even thinking about that. They're thinking about having a conversation. I'm thinking about it. Exactly. So the self-awareness piece was, okay, let me take myself out of this for a second. Let me figure out, why do I feel that way? And then I could be vulnerable, tying it to vulnerability with them later and say, hey, I apologize if I came off as closed or cold when we were talking about business.
Really?
I just realized.
Did you say
Yeah. And again, I have very, very aligned relationships with the people in my life, so it makes it a little bit easier. But I apologize if I came off as this way. I was just in my head, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was just trying to figure out why I was having the reactions I was having. So self-awareness creates the opportunity for you to figure out what's what, and is this feeling I'm getting because I'm getting a mirror from something I'm looking at? It's not the person making it wrong.
Basically, whatever that's... Oftentimes, when you think something bad, it's because you haven't fully... that part of you hasn't fully healed yet. That's and you yourself think that, oh, I'm not good enough because you think you're not good enough. But actually, your business partners, they see you as somebody on par or even better than them for all we know.
Yeah. You're mind reading. You're trying to read other people's minds. That's kind of what's happening. And I think self-awareness allows you to take a step back and say, oh, no, we've done this before. Last time we did this, this is what we did, and this worked really well. All right, let's do that again. Most people have cell phones now, and there's a lot of people who understand their cell phone at a very deep level. If you want to take good pictures, you change this setting. All right, cool. That's good. That's cell phone awareness. And the awareness you have for the cell phone, that's good because it creates opportunity for you to know a lot about it. And you know what settings to use and what settings not to use and all that stuff. If you can have that with yourself, you're going to be more capable of influencing yourself and the world around you as well.
Okay. This became a therapy. Okay, few more minutes, Kevin. I've got a few more questions for you. Okay, pivotal questions for this, particularly for this podcast. I just want to ask, I know we did talk about worthiness, but have you ever at any point in your life succumbed to that feeling of worthlessness, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, definitely. A lot. I was somebody who had a very, very, very low level of self-worth. Definitely. And what worked really well for me was investing in myself in terms of knowledge, in terms of learning more. What I always say is, if you feel like you're a car with 4 flat tires, the last thing you're ever going to do is repaint the car. Doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't make any sense to repaint a car with 4 flat tires. You got to fix the 4 flat tires first.
Yeah.
That's how I felt for a long time. So going back to what we just talked about, self-awareness of, okay, where do I get my worthiness? Why don't I feel like I have any? For me, it goes back to childhood. Cool. Okay, let me connect that dot. What does that mean? Well, it means as a child, I felt like I wasn't worthy because my dad left. Oh, and then every decision I ever made after that was based in that mistruth in some way, shape, or form.
Your dad left. Because, yeah.
Right? So it starts with that. It starts with the awareness of, okay, where does that actually come from? This lack of worthiness, this self-worth. Okay, cool. That's part one. What worked really well for me was starting to set boundaries. Because I do believe lack of boundaries is usually connected to low self-worth, because you put other people's desires and value over your own. So you kind of abandon yourself because you don't feel like you're worthy of holding the boundary. That was very important for me, because it started to teach I started to teach myself that My boundaries, my time, my space, my opinion, my word is valuable. If it's what's best for me, I have to own that and I have to stand my ground on that, because then people do start to treat you differently. And then when people start to treat you differently, I think that also helps you lock in the self-worth. So yeah, I would say setting boundaries and then setting and keeping small promises to myself too. Not just, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. today, not that, but today when I have a limiting belief, I'm going to talk to myself about what that limiting belief means and how to overcome it. Okay, cool. Let me do that enough times. And then eventually you get to the point where those limiting beliefs, they're not the song that's playing in your head anymore. You have a different song. Today, before this interview, if this interview was 4 years ago, the song I would have had is, I'm not going to be good enough. I really hope Nicolette likes me, and I hope I can add value. Today, it was, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. It's going to be a great interview. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm not worried about being enough. Yeah. I know I'm enough. Now, here's the thing. But yes. Polarity. That's also based on the fact that I have worked diligently at what I'm doing for the last 6 years. If this was my first interview ever, and I showed up saying, I am enough, this is going to be amazing, I'm the best, Nicolette's so lucky to interview me, that I don't think that's the goal. Because, so here's the thing. I believe we think of high self-worth as a good thing. I don't know. I like accurate self-worth. Accurate. That's my thought. Low self-worth, high self-worth are polarities. I've met a lot of people who have delusionally high self-worth. They think they're the best in the world, and they think they're going to crush it just because that's who they are, and they don't. They need to be humbled a little bit. They need to be humbled. They need to be knocked down a peg to get to the point where they say, well, I am worthy intrinsically. I'm a worthy human being, but maybe I'm not worthy of that result yet based on the fact that I haven't put in the effort. Oh, interesting. Okay. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Self-discovery is often described as journey. So, for you, what does this journey entail, and how did that contribute to your personal growth and happiness?
My journey is one of self-awareness and then being very, very, very regimented. So really?
Discipline?
Very disciplined. Yes. So I'm very in my head when it comes to thinking about everything. Self-awareness. Why do I feel so comfortable with Nicolette? Does Nicolette feel comfortable? Let me make her laugh. Okay, cool. That's good. We're back in rapport. That's always going on in my brain. How do I make this the best experience? Okay. Always. But that's in the brain. In the body, I am very regimented where I track the same habits every single day. I just do what I'm supposed to do, even if I don't want to do it, more often than not always. I have days where I don't. But yeah, the reason I have gotten where I am, quote unquote, is because I'm very, very self-aware, but I'm also very, very regimented and disciplined in the things that I know are the most important that I should be doing. It's the internal self-worth, self-belief, all of that, strengths, weaknesses, limiting beliefs, that internal, as well as the external of grit, consistency, persistence, discipline, staying up when I need to get work done, sleeping in extra when I know I should get some extra sleep. That. It's just being regimented in that. Those two things have been instrumental in getting to where I am today for sure.
Wow. Okay. Definitely a golden nugget for me tonight. So what gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning? Mm-hmm. I listened to one of your previous episodes, and I knew you were going to ask. I think it's different. It's different for me. If you asked me a few years ago, I would probably make something up and say, "Oh, I want to be the best version of me, and that's all I think about all the time." No, I do. I want to be the best version of me, and I do think about it all the time, but it's not what gets me out of bed. What gets me out of bed is the fact that my yoga mat is waiting for me and I'm going to go do mobility. Yeah. Every morning.
Wow.
That's what gets me out of bed. My yoga mat is waiting. I'm going to do my 15 minutes of mobility, and then I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to go do podcast things. That's it. I don't have a really good, like, intrinsic inspirational message for me. Yeah, I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. I am privileged to have the life I have. I work very, very diligently to make sure I keep the life I have. All of this to me is kind of a dream come true. And I'm serious when I say that. When I was at your point in the podcast, I remember for episode number 7, I recorded an episode that I said my goal, my dream would be to wake up when I want, to go to sleep when I want, to podcast with amazing people, to be my own boss, and just be able to do whatever I want. And here we are 1,450 episodes later, and that is my reality. I get to sleep. I can sleep in all day if I want to. I don't want to. That's what gets me up. The life I've created gets me up. But polarity. The only way I get to keep the life I created is if I keep doing the things I did to create it in the first place. That's what gets me up in the morning.
You're the first one to actually said that you've listened to my podcast and you knew I was gonna ask. Okay,
Nicolette, I do my research. I do my research. I'm a professional.
Yes. Okay, so I'm sure you know what's my next question before we close this. If you have a quote that you could leave to the audience and to the world as your legacy, what would it be?
The biggest difference between the person you are today and the person you want to be eventually is your habits. So start practicing habits that your future self will thank you for.
he got it. Like that. He's prepared. Okay. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Of course.
I think we're just right on time. 1 hour.
I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the wonderful questions. I appreciate the energy. Happy to come back in the future anytime. I'm just a message away.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kevin.
You're
I'll
welcome.
be following you on Instagram. I already did.
I appreciate
you, Kevin. Yeah. Bye-bye. Thanks
Bye.
for your time.
Of course.